I think we should go to what is probably our last story for the night, I think. And that is because we love look at that cheeky look. Look at that sideways cheeky look from Mr.
I'm going to
McAnulty.
fucking wreck this dude.
No, because the interviewer, it's Chris Chang, isn't it, just said something that they came dressed alike. And that was the look from Kieran to Chris Chang when he was basically saying, "Are you telling me I look like him?" That was the look. He
Two men in a suit. Who would have thought?
But they started the conversation talking about Te Pāti Māori and about, I think this is a really good, like we've been talking about, the Labour in particular not stepping on the Greens when they can. I think Kieran makes really masterful decisions here as to how to talk about Te Pāti Māori, which is basically saying, well, we're going to be competing with them. So in our ideal, we're not going to be looking to form a coalition because we're competing with them. I actually think that's quite a good place because it's not stomping on them. It's not having to say, no, we're not going to work with them. It's actually saying this is a competition. So there's no point having the conversations around coalition or not until the competition's done. And if we were going to be like sweet as to Te Pāti Māori, we wouldn't be competing against them. But we're trying to win those seats off them. So let's see if that happens first. So in other words, they're able to shelve this conversation in quite a logical way till after the election, which I think is quite an astute way to talk about it, and also very honest at the same time.
Chris, how much of a detriment is this potentially to Labour? We asked Chris Hipkins earlier in the week, would they rule it out working with them, and he's not doing so. Is this going to be detrimental for Labour to not do that?
Well, look, ultimately, I think most New Zealanders look at the chaos in Te Pāti Māori and say, goodness gracious me, what's going on? I mean, it's every day seems to produce a new, set of issues, and but basically there's no consensus between them. You've got John Tamahiri and you've got his faction, you've got the other faction. Half of them want to be leader. They're potentially talking about expelling a couple of the MPs, and you've got to remember there's only 6 of them in the caucus, so that's a third of the caucus would be expelled, and the ones they want to expel want to be the leader. So, look, it's pretty messy, frankly, and I think most New Zealanders look at it and say we want those guys nowhere near government, and ultimately whether or not they choose to work with them is a question for Chris Hipkins. Our position is really clear, which is we want nothing to do with them. They're not a party that can be trusted in government.
Kieran, do you think this is going to work against the Labour Party?
Well, I don't see why people would link the Labour Party to Te Pāti Māori, because it's really important we tell the full story here. Is that, potential.
Yeah, but so is New Zealand First and ACT to National Party, and you don't have the same conversations. And I said, this is a really good way of looking at it, which is not to talk down Te Pāti Māori, but to go, we are competing with Te Pāti Māori. We want those seats, so let's do that first. I think it's a clean way to talk about this without kind of smashing on them and without therefore going, we're fine with whatever they do. It's a good middle ground. It's a clever conversation.
But it hasn't been locked in. And
remember the conversations around National and their potential coalition with New Zealand First last election?
Yeah. I don't even know who's Winston. I don't even know who Winston is.
I've never even heard of a Winston.
Well, who's he? I don't know.
Yeah, potential, but it hasn't been locked in. And what Chris Hipkins said is we're not ruling anyone in or out. We will make that decision closer to the election. We released policy on our own timetable. We're going to release this decision on our own timetable. And making it sound like that we are already formally linked with Te Pāti Māori is inaccurate. What Chris Hipkins actually said was that if this is the way they carry on, they won't be anywhere near government. And that's a pretty clear steer. And also, there is a piece of information here that seems to be overlooked. We're going to go into the election trying to win each of the Māori seats.
Yeah.
So you can't really say that we are in lockstep with the Māori Party, but we want to win all their seats.
Yeah, I think it's a really clear, and I think that, oh, hello, sheesh, how are you, big face? Back again.
Hey.
I think it's a really clear, it's accurate, it's clear, it's clean, it's also not dumping on Te Pāti Māori. And yeah, I mean, how can anyone lumber us with being sort of beholden to this group we're going to try and win in the marketplace of ideas against? And then after the election, we can talk then. It's good.
Yeah. No, really solid answer. there's a lot of comment on this in the chat, and I'm going to agree as well. Bishop is in the hut.
Mm-hmm.
He's the minister for the mighty hut. There's a lot of Māori people that live in the hut. You'd think at some point, if he's truly interacting with people in his electorate, he'd learn how to say Māori.
Yeah, I picked that up as well. But I mean, I here's the question though, right? Is it a tactic that he says Maori because of his voter base, or is he one of these Kiwis that just says, you know, Wakawai and Maori and, you know, Taupo? And I mean, I think that it's lazy, but I know there are some people out there they've anglicized everything and that's how they speak. It's not I'm the kind of person that won't defend them in doing it, but I also don't typically correct them if I'm interacting with them one-on-one. Speedlock says lazy.
Minister.
Yeah, of course. That's what I'm saying. Is it a tactic? You know, he doesn't want to get a Facebook full of messages saying, "Oh, why do you say it like that? Why do you say it like Te Pāti Māori say it?" Maybe he just doesn't want that. So, but I don't know. I mean, it's worth asking. Perhaps it's worth asking. The next question, the next little clip as well. They're still talking about Te Pāti Māori, but Kieran makes a pretty bold statement, and it's interesting how I don't think Labour is necessarily actively trying to distance themselves from Te Pāti Māori. I think they're trying to distance themselves, as are the Greens, from the current ongoings, right? Because there's stuff going on there. But I've never heard, I think, a would-be Labour minister, potentially, you know, deputy prime minister, link themselves so closely to the Greens, because he is about to say that there's every chance at the next election it'll just be us and the Greens. Like Te Pāti Māori won't be quote unquote needed. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know, but I thought it was interesting that they'd come out so strongly, kind of hitching themselves together, or certainly hitching Labour to the Greens so strongly. I've never heard it before this far out as strongly as this.
It's a
I
question
actually
you can...
don't think that the polling, when we get close to the election, will show that the Labour Party will need Te Pāti Māori. If we look at the trajectory of the polling compared to the last election and now, and we continue to build in the polls, my prediction is that when we get closer to the election, it'll show that the Labour Party and the Green Party will be able to form a majority and won't need Te Pāti Māori.
That's big talk, but there was quite a bit of talk about the Tai Tokerau by-election, for example, in which
I left this in because a Minister of the Crown didn't know where the by-election was. So I thought this is worth leaving in because it wasn't in Te Tai Tokerau, and Kieran points that out. So I kind of left this in to go, this is how far. That makes it kind of think to me he just doesn't care about, for example, Māori seat and stuff. So maybe that's the use of the word Maori, maybe that's just who he is.
Tai Tokerau by-election, for example, in which Pēni Henare is a senior Labour former cabinet minister, sort of the expectation was he would do quite well. And he got absolutely, respectfully, he got absolutely rinsed by the new Maori Party MP. So I think the idea that Labour's going to kind of walk back into...
You can't remember her name, that's why I said it like that.
...the Maori seats is, I think, respectfully... probably a little bit idealistic.
Well, if the National Party stood candidates, I might take Chris Bishop's advice on the Māori seats, but they don't.
No, that's not true. We stood a couple of candidates in the last election on the Maori seats.
Well, my point, I suppose, is that do you need Kieran to make sure that actually...
But we did stand candidates, is my point.
Do you need to be proactive?
That the by-election, not Te Tai Tokerau. The second point is we also know that by-elections are completely different to general elections. And when the Māori Party candidate was standing in Tāmaki Makaurau and saying Pēni Henare is already in Parliament, the reason for the by-election was the death of Te Pāti Māori MP. That is a completely different scenario to a general election. And we're all saying that the behaviour of the Māori Party at the moment is not desirable. If that continues, I can't imagine that result will be repeated at the general election.
So he's basically saying he thinks that the voters won't vote for if there's that going on. Now, whether he's true or not, I don't know. Whether that's one step over the line to a potential coalition partner, I don't know. But I think it's better than what we've heard Chewie do in the past, which is like, basically make a statement that if you saw it as a headline, you'd think Luxon had said it. So I think he's found the middle ground there of basically going, look, we're fighting them for those seats. So don't look to us to be definitely being in the same camp as them. I think it's a good. I wonder if it's just Kieran or that's been workshopped, but I think that's quite a good response to not slamming a potential coalition partner, but also going, but we're not having a cup of tea, David Seymour. We're trying to fight these guys for the seats. So maybe they won't even be there to have this conversation. Let's wait and see.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with singing your own praises instead of jumping on to someone at a low moment, right? Like, I don't even think that would necessarily be a bad thing for Te Pāti Māori if they weren't needed to form a government. Because then they could
float and do what they want.
Yeah, I think you've said this before, right? Is it more behooves Te Pāti Māori to be able to sit and criticise whoever?
Well, I think that's an interesting, strong point, and I probably have said something like that before, but I do also think if you're not needed in government, then there's every chance you'll get nothing through. So because I can't imagine there won't be policy that, like the Greens, there's probably no policy that, maybe there is, if anyone can think of one, that the Greens wouldn't support that Te Pāti Māori would. Like I think they'll be in quite the same sort of situation. Sorry, you're going to say?
No, I think. Sorry, I'm just trying to remember now. We would. It was around the discussions of a potential overhang.
Or are you talking supply and confidence? Like the other option, and they've done this before, is like if there's not enough to form a government with Labour and the Greens, then they can get supply and confidence from Te Pāti Māori, and it might not mean that they're in cabinet or have ministers' positions, or they become ministers outside. Now, I think people know where we sit with Te Pāti Māori. I'm not. This is not me saying this is what I want for them, but we're just talking politics here. We're talking the game of politics, and that could be very much. I think there's a chance there could be. Let's say the numbers fell the right way. You could see a Labour Green government. You could see a Labour Green Te Pāti Māori government. You could see a Labour Green government with Te Pāti Māori and supply and confidence. I don't think what you would see is a Labour government with Greens and Te Pāti Māori in supply and confidence, or I don't think you'd see a Labour government, Te Pāti Māori government with the Greens in supply and confidence. So there's a couple of ways there if they're needed that they can be outside the cabinet. And that's the thing about being outside the cabinet. We've seen it in this term, if you are outside the cabinet, you don't have to adhere to the cabinet handbooks. You can speak your mind more if you want to, even if you're on the same team. If you're inside cabinet, it's like, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. What happens in the cabinet room stays in the cabinet room, and you can't shirk from the story. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would think that Te Pāti Māori will want to be in government, i.e. ministerial portfolios and stuff. But I think I'm not just saying Kieran's played a good hand, meaning he's fudged it. I think what he's saying is true. I mean, there is the possibility, and I don't think it'll happen, and listening to people like John Tamihere, I don't think he thinks it'll happen, but there is the possibility that if Labour wins all those seats, there's no Te Pāti Māori after the next election. Now, I don't think that's likely, but there is a chance, which means Labour is at loggerheads with this party, first and foremost wanting their seats. Oh, you guys won all of them? Okay, let's talk. It is actually ruling in, ruling out. There's no point. We don't rule anyone in or out because we don't know if they're going to be there. So I think it's a accurate and fair way to talk about the relationship between Labour and Te Pāti Māori at the moment. But I think we all know that they'll want to go in together if they can. I mean, will Labour want to be with Te Pāti Māori? I would hope so. I would hope they'd want to have them involved. But then again, you have to appease three parties rather than two. So I don't know. That's why they get paid the big bucks, Chewie, and me and you sit here in our mum's basements talking to no one.
Look, I think a big part of it is, and this is why Nationals banging the drum so hard, right, is that they are scared of a government that involves Te Pāti Māori. So what my feeling is on that is good. Then that's what we should aim for. If it's putting the shits up you guys to the point that you're squealing this hard on your social media channels, we should absolutely do it.
Yeah. The people who are complaining show that it's like Simeon Brown having a crack at Craig. Craig goes, well, I'm doing the right thing. It's like this government bitching and moaning and squealing and lying about the CGT means perhaps the CGT is going in the right direction. Yeah. So that's a really interesting point. If Luxon, well, here's the thing. Yeah. it's one of two things. Either Luxon is concerned, National is concerned about having Te Pāti Māori in government, or they know it's red meat to their audience and they're just going to say it to continue to grow their own pie, and they don't really have a view on whether they want it or don't want it. It could be either of those things.